Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Joining me today is Kalavai Venkat, and we're going to be discussing about the shock and awe strategy of Donald Trump. How well is it working? Well, when he draws the line and says that I'm going to levy so much tariffs and then he delays it by a month, what exactly is going on in the background and what are the other places where this strategy is being deployed? All this and more with Kalavai Venkat. Namaskaram, sir. How are you?
Sri Guru, I am fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Venkatji, this is, I think, the first time I'm drawing you out directly into US politics. We've talked about a lot of things. I think maybe second time you're looking into US politics because we talked about illegal immigrants on one time.
Right.
I think in the past episode we talked about it. I am very curious to know your input because you think at a slightly different level and you bring very new angles to all these things. Shock and awe, everybody's in agreement that he tries to shock you. For example, I'll tell you a simple thing. Press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu. He catches Benjamin Netanyahu open mouth when he says, we are going to take over Gaza.
Say with 𝗏𝗏𝗙𝗘𝗏 too. You know, in the White House press briefing, 𝗏𝗏𝗙𝗏 was responding to a question and midway through Trump cuts him off and says, that's enough. Okay. Waves his hand, stops him midway through, next question. Okay. So, wonderful way of treating other heads of state.
Yes. He doesn't care about what others will think. Niceties and all, they can be, thrown. This is what I want to do and I will do it. Go ahead.
I think it's more important to be nice than to just advertise niceties. Okay, that's the difference, right? So, because if you look at Obama, if you look at Clinton and all those people, they were advertising niceties 24/7, but they were not nice people. Obama waged one of the worst episodes of war in American history. He went after one country after another, destabilized them. He is the man who destabilized Ukraine in 2008. I think niceties is what most people are carried away by, but being nice is more important. Take Trump, for example. He is the only president after Jimmy Carter who did not start a new war. Okay, and he's the only president who is talking about increasing the prosperity of everyone in the world, and he has talked openly about the India, Middle East, European Union corridor. He has talked about bringing Russia back into G8 so that there is wealth generation and economic prosperity across the world. And he wants to end wars. So I think sometimes when we are dealing with really nasty characters like the leftists and woke and others, you cannot be, talking like Ramana Maharishi or Shankaracharya. You have to talk tough, and then you have to say things without sugarcoating them. But at the end of the day, if you're doing the nice thing, then shock and awe is worth it 100%. So I think that's where I am. That's where my stance is. And then you brought up really good question. How is the shock and awe working? I think, was it yesterday or day before in the evening that Trudeau was crying, right? So after Trump said, look, if you're not controlling the fentanyl, if you're not controlling all the drugs that are coming across the border, illegal immigration across the Canadian border, then we are going to slap 25% tariff on you. I think here is the bottom line. America is the sole superpower of the world today. Everybody admits that. European Union openly admitted that if we want to give security guarantee to Ukraine, then it needs America's blessings. Without America, nothing can happen. America is the country which is leading the world in technology revolution, innovation, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, scientific discovery, space technology, artificial intelligence, name it, America is the world leader. And America can afford to impose tariffs. And even if the cost of money goes up, America can do quantitative easing for the time being to tide over the crisis. No other country can afford to do that. That's why when Trump's flex muscles, eventually everyone has to go down on his knees and submit to Trump. And that's what Justin Trudeau has done. And then that's what 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and others have been signaling from around the world. And I think this is going to work in favor of America. And frankly speaking, in the long run, it will work in favor of everyone. But that's just the preamble I wanted to answer. But go ahead. I want you to drive the overall discussion so that I can answer the question.
Thank you so much, Kalavai. So let's take a couple of issues here. Viewers, come back at 9:30 with Major General Rajiv Narayanan about what is happening in terms of realignment in Europe. We're going to talk about that as a separate discussion, so do join in for that. Today here, we're going to just touch upon this because there is so much to be discussed there that Major General Rajiv Narayanan and I will be talking about it. But today with Kalavai, see, Kalavai, couple of things happened in the last couple of weeks that we talked about. Panama, there is some reorientation, and also we are now hearing that China or Chinese people are buying up a lot of land in the Newfoundland area, which is very close to the Arctic Circle, which is a property of Canada. So see, people kind of got shocked as to why is this guy going and buying Greenland? What is there in Greenland? There's a lot of snow, nothing else. So these kinds of questions, now slowly things are coming out that this is the reality here, this is what is happening here. China's unbridled thirst for power, that's how I see it. This has led them to strange places, and anywhere you take a little bit, lift the carpet and look underneath, you see a Chinese hand, whether it is Panama Canal, and now we are talking about control of the Arctics, and we also talk about Mexico. See, again, in Mexico, what has happened is March 4th, he said it's going to be imposed, and again, it's deferred by a month. And the reason for that is still not clear. Touch upon these three things for us. Over to you.
So what's the last thing? Can you just repeat that?
Mexico, they have deferred the 25% tariffs.
Oh yeah,
another month. Another month. So there is some movement on the ground that America has seen. See, he has said the same thing when he talked to Trudeau. I'm just trying to finish what you said. He said that I am not seeing any change in your handling of the fentanyl situation, which is why he said that with Canada it is on right now. Over to you.
See, Trump is a really, really smart person, right? He's a visionary, and I'm going to say this very bluntly. He's the greatest world leader in the last 150 years. Okay, for the reasons I already stated, but even more importantly, he's addressing the most important problems. What is the biggest problem he's addressing now? For that, I think I will request every viewer on this podcast to go on Spotify and listen to the Joe Rogan episode 2281, where Joe Rogan is hosting Elon Musk. It's a 3-hour, 20-minute long conversation. It's a must watch. It's enlightening to the core. But in the course of the conversation, Elon Musk brings up a lot of very important points. 2 points are so critical that I will highlight those. Point number 1 he brings up is the debt, the national debt of the United States. By various estimates, it's almost $36 trillion. But that's not the full story. So here, Elon Musk points out that the United States debt and liability will double. It's not $36 trillion, it's going to be $72 trillion, because we have a lot of commitments too. Most important of those would be the Social Security and Medicare commitments. So for the benefit of the audience, the way these two things work in the United States is Social Security treated more like a pension. Let's say you start working at the age of 21 and you work for 40 years. Every paycheck, you will make a contribution for Social Security tax and Medicare tax. And these two will theoretically accumulate in an actuarial fund, so that when you retire at the age of 62, 65, 67, whenever you retire, you will start getting your Social Security benefits, which is your pension. And then you will start getting Medicare, which is your healthcare insurance. Okay, so those two will be getting. What is implied in this entire mechanism is all of the investment you're making will be like your college saving fund or like your fixed deposit, so that they go into a fund and then they are invested prudently, and then you get the benefits for 3-4 decades down the line. That's not what happened in the United States. Over the last several decades, primarily the leftist politicians, but even Republicans in some cases, they have been literally taking out all this money. You are contributing for your own healthcare, your own Social Security, and spending it on all kinds of illegal activities, including supporting illegal immigrants, hosting them in hotels, buying them cars, and all these things. So this is massive corruption. And with this level of corruption, uh, we are doing a disservice to the future generation, because not only the future generation will not get any of these benefits, but they will be paying for us, the bygone generations. So this is a very cruel thing. This is why Trump is very focused on uh, making sure that the national debt is resolved. That's primarily the reason why Elon Musk is driving most of the Doge initiatives to identify fraud, waste, and everything, and to take care of this. This is number one. Then number two, why is Trump indulging in shock and awe? Once again, Elon Musk revealed something very, very pertinent, which is very unnerving too. So during the course of the discussion with Joe Rogan, Elon Musk points out that he is more than happy to talk about government waste. That itself runs into trillions of dollars every year. However, he is very careful to explicitly state, I will not talk about fraud. What is the difference between waste and fraud? Waste is something that happens because of inefficiency, because of stupid bureaucracy. That can be stopped. It need not necessarily be a crime. Whereas fraud is a crime. For example, when you take hundreds of millions of dollars and route it through Ukraine or anybody, and then in turn, you take a kickback, okay, that goes to your secret account in Panama or Seychelles or any of these places, then or in Switzerland and other places, then this is fraud. And Elon Musk points out, if he were to expose fraud, he would get assassinated. So he will only expose waste. He'll only expose inefficiency. He will not talk about fraud, because exposing fraud will get Elon Musk assassinated. This is Elon Musk.
And the world's richest man is saying this.
Richest man is saying this. And why are we surprised? Just in the last few months, we saw 2 assassination attempts on President Trump. So back to your question, right? So how are these things connected? So when we talk of, for example, China buying up land, okay, so in Newfoundland as an example, and then similarly, a lot of the contracts that have been handed over to them. So why is everything made in China? So why is it so unnerving to Trump? Because all of these things go hand in hand with kickbacks that go to the Democrat politicians. So for example, Burisma deal with Ukraine was a very good example, where tens of millions of dollars were transferred and or being held in the secret accounts of Democrat politicians. So if you want to end all these things, you cannot be putting Band-Aid on the wound, okay? Because what you're dealing with is a gashing hole, and then you have to do a surgical operation, you have to take it out. And that's primarily the reason why Trump is acting tough and why he is taking on China, for the simple reason China is not only a rival to the United States of America, but China is also destabilizing American interests around the world. And when I say it's destabilizing American interests, goes without saying it is also destabilizing Indian interests in the entire Bay of Bengal, East Asia and other places. So whatever Trump is doing is also to the benefit of India. So why is Trump cracking down on China? Number one, it is, if China gets stronger, then the enemies of the United States, the internal enemies, which is the left, would get stronger, and they would continue to weaken and destabilize America. That's reason number one. And reason number two is, when Trump does not take on China, does not initiate the tariff wars, and does not change the asymmetry in the trade between the two countries, or between the European Union and America, or between Russia and America, or Canada and America, Mexico and America, when these are not fixed, then what it does is it continues to weaken America, both from without as well as from within. Okay, so within, the corrupt politicians will be taking money from China, from EU, from a lot of other countries, and they will destabilize America from within. And then from without, China will be investing all this money into military technology. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just one small observation here. Viewers, some of you may have watched the President's address to the joint houses of Senate and Congress that took place, I think, on Tuesday, if I remember correctly. And one person, Brown, Congressman Brown, got walked out, escorted out, because he kept talking. Green. Sorry, not Brown, Green. Sorry. I think Jim Green, if I remember correctly. Jim Green actually got walked out from there using the security personnel. Today social media is buzzed with talk that this man took at least $10 million from the Chinese Communist Party. $10 million. This individual. And I have the link with me. I'll put that thing in the reference link section because you came. I mean, I thought that I should mention this again. This is what is going on social media. We are not. In fact, that thing is saying they have given a particular reference, and that's in Chinese, where he admits that I have taken this money. So it's not just an accusation. I'll give you the link, viewers. You decide what you want. Sorry about this. I just needed to tell because what you're saying is spot on. China has deeply penetrated various stratas of society across the countries of the world, including India. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for mentioning India, because in 2008, Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi signed a secret MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the Chinese Communist Party. I think they repeated that was it 2017 or 18? They did it twice, and on both occasions it was secretive, and we still do not know the contents of those MOU. And it was divulged only when the Chinese accidentally published a photograph of these criminals signing the MOU with Xi Jinping. At the time, he was not the premier. Correct. I think he was the general secretary of CCP, and they signed with him. And why? Because that was exactly the time in 2008 when China captured a lot of territory in northeastern part of India. And this was the money paid to these guys to keep quiet and to further Chinese expansion. Now, back to your more basic question. Is it working? What Trump is doing, the shock and awe technique, is it working? I think the answer is yes. Okay, why? Let's take a few examples. You already mentioned Mexico and Canada, but before we come to that, let's take the example of Ukraine. When a week ago, when they had the White House conference among Trump, Vance, and Zelensky, Zelensky had met with the Democrat senators and congressmen an hour before. And then they fed him the talking points. They told him to go and then throw the minerals deal under the bus and then to embarrass Trump. That's what he did. But Trump and Vance would not have any of that. They caught on to that right in real time, and then they kicked him out. Okay, now what's happening? Over the weekend, Zelensky went to Europe. Nothing happened. So those guys made empty promises, but they also admitted unless Trump guarantees security, there's nothing we can do. So what did he do? He has once again signed the minerals deal, and he is now coming and falling at the feet of Trump and begging to be let in to the discussion. Because with or without Zelensky, the minerals deal will happen. Peace will come to Ukraine. Either Zelensky becomes a rubber stamp and does what Trump says, or he'll be replaced by somebody else, or not even be replaced. America will guarantee security, and Russia will keep the territory, and peace will prevail. So it's already working. And let's look at some of the areas where it is really working. You already hinted at Mexico and Canada. And in those cases, Trump has paused tariff implementation by a month, and he may even extend it, but he made it very clear, right? He's using using it more as a bargaining chip to enforce two other things which are even more critical, right? Number one, or three other things which are even more critical. Number one, to have a better trade agreement among all of these things, because he wants American companies to be able to invest in other countries and not be unfairly treated, as well as invite investments from other countries into the United States. That's why he's introducing gold card. This is a repeat of what FDR did in 1938, 1939, when he recognized that America owns 70% of the world capital, and hence, instead of colonization, it's capitalism that should rule the world. So Trump is doing the same thing now. And then the second thing that's happening is he wants to make sure that fentanyl and other drugs are completely stopped, because drugs come along with criminal gangs, along with mafia, along with crime syndicates. And in the congressional address, Trump named, one of the reserves of the 12-year-old girl, Nangre, in Texas, and similarly one more again after Laken Riley, an act he passed named after Laken Riley. Both of them were assassinated, and raped and killed by illegal immigrants. So it's crime that he wants to stop, because crime is not an ordinary thing. And in the previous podcast, Shree, we have talked about how Biden-Kamala Harris administration let in 13,000 murderers and 13,000 rapists and 15,000 murderers into the United States willingly. So protecting American citizens is a prime responsibility for Trump, and that's the second bargaining chip he wants to extract out of this. Then the third one is stopping illegal immigration. So yes, America can deploy the soldiers, the National Guard, everything on the border and stop it, but it's also going to be a very expensive proposition. So to get the Mexicans and the Canadians to do the same thing, and I think as soon as he flexed his muscle, Mexico deployed 10,000 soldiers on the border to stop that. And now I think the entire illegal immigration has come to a standstill. Nobody is coming in anymore, and people will be only kicked out. So it's working on all of those fronts. And since we mentioned all these three countries, let's also mention India a little bit, because Trump has also made it very clear that India is a high tariff country, and he will impose as much tariff on India as India imposes on US imports. I think that's absolutely correct. Okay, and here once again, I don't think Trump is flexing muscle. He has made it absolutely clear a few things. One, he wants to keep the EU, Canada, Mexico, and China at a distance. On the other hand, he wants to let Russia into G8. And he has been repeatedly extending an olive branch to India. He has openly said that Modi is his personal friend, and he's a wonderful negotiator, and he wants to partner with India. Why? The answer is simple. If he wants to minimize dependence on China for manufacturing, then he needs an alternative, and that alternative has to be India. And that's the reason Elon Musk met with Modi. He brought his family, I think, and he met with Modi. And then Vance invited Modi for dinner with his family. And all of these things are not happening in a void. Basically, Trump wants to set up India as an alternative to China, not only for manufacturing, not only for soft skills like software and other things, IT and other things, but even more importantly, as a military deterrent, as an armed deterrent to China right there in Asia. And if we come to think of it, aligning with Trump on this, in this case, Trump is not using this as a shock and awe tactic, but he's using it as a genuine olive branch, because that's why he's also, extending a sale of F-35 to India, and India doesn't have anything comparable to F-35. Let's be blunt about that. Okay, if there is a war tomorrow, India doesn't stand a chance, because 1 in 3 Tejas fighters crash, right? So that's the initial statistic. So India doesn't stand a chance, and the Russian fighter jets are no match to American technology. So Trump is extending a lot to India. So I think in this case, it's not a shock and awe, and it will be prudent for India to understand the long-term consequences of this and align itself with Trump. Those are some of the points I wanted to bring up.
Thank you so much. And one of the thoughts that I have, and viewers, there is no confirmation, but reliable sources tell me this is true. China can attack India only from the east, meaning like Arunachal Pradesh or Bhutan. They can come straight in from Bhutan. They can take over Bhutan, come straight in. They'll try to cut the chicken's neck off because they also want to induce shock and awe. And they're continuing to keep the pot boiling in Bangladesh. You saw today there was a huge rally by the Jamaat, in Dhaka, with clashes going on with the law and order and things like that. So in all these things, I am reliably informed, and I have no proof to tell you this or not. But if China tries to enter into Bhutan, Bhutan has already signed everything with India to become part of India, just like Sikkim merged with India. This is, again, please don't kill me if this isn't, this is reliably learned. All the papers have been signed, because what is alleged is that the foreign minister of Bhutan has been compromised. Again, allegations. Okay, I don't know this individual. I was not there as to what happened, but these are all coming through. Why I'm saying all this is because, see, if Bhutan is secure, then the chicken's neck is sort of secure, because that's where that vulnerability is. Then the next thing is Arunachal Pradesh. Arunachal Pradesh is a bit of a challenge, but there's also a possibility that they can come in through Myanmar. because Myanmar is unstable. So India has problems right from the chicken's neck eastward. India needs to settle a lot of things. First good thing they did was to dismiss the government of BJP's own Virender Singh, because we said this. I don't know, Kalavai, if you watched that or not. Savio said 6 months ago that it's time for a chief minister's change. And he's also a BJP guy. Why did all these people say that? Because there was something there where you have adopted a certain attitude that makes it difficult for you to be accepted as the leader of the people. That's where things went wrong. So anyway, so long story short, from that point on, India is a little bit vulnerable. What you said absolutely makes sense. Many of you will tell us, oh, US cannot be trusted. We're not asking you to trust US. Don't trust US with your life. But this is transactional. Do what is needed in order to fortify yourself. You have to stop China. Time is now. Bangladesh will collapse under its own weight. But if people keep putting money in and keep creating problems, the poor Hindus are the ones who are getting shafted there. On 12th
Indeed.
March, there's a huge meeting in DC. By the way, I'll be covering that also. Back to you.
Yeah. No, those are very, very important points. See, number one, right? Everybody keeps talking about the US cannot be trusted. I don't think so, because look at it historically, right? JFK was very keen on defending India against China, not the other way around. Yes, right after him, during the days of Nixon, etc., there was a lot of angst between India and the United States. But if you remember that old video, I think it is from 1981 or 82, when Indira Gandhi visits the United States and meets with Ronald Reagan in the White House. And Indira Gandhi, you can see, is very cold and angry, right? Because of the way she had been treated before that by the other American presidents. But Reagan is extending an olive branch to her and trying to align with her. And again, after that, it was a bit unreliable and Clinton and Obama. But now it's back on a solid track with Trump. Okay. So number one, I think on number of occasions, the US has stood by India. And contrary to what people think, Russia did not always stand behind India. Okay, when China invaded India, Russia was Soviet Union then, was not on our side. Okay, so we should remember these things. And then second, in personal relationships, trust matters. Okay, in a marital relationship or among friends or between parents and children, trust matters a lot, because these are very, very long-term relationships. These are not based on quid pro quo or pragmatism. These are based on love and emotions and feelings. However, relationships between countries are not based on trust. They are not based on emotions. They are based on pragmatism. This is the point which Chanakya repeatedly highlights in the Arthashastra, and this is what guides most of the advocacies of Vidura or Sri Krishna in the Mahabharata, because most of the times it's not trust. You don't go and trust another country. You start with the premise, look, just like I am going to operate on the basis of my self-interest, the other nation is also going to operate on the same premise. So let's get to the pragmatic and practical aspects of that. So once again, let's turn to Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been talking about the way AI, or even more pertinently AGI, okay, artificial general intelligence. And the difference between the two is AGI is intended to, I don't know whether it's going to happen or not, or if not 100%, but it's intended to use a neural net to think more like human beings. Well, the word think is within quotes, more like human beings, but exceed in terms of performance. And Elon Musk says in the next 2 to 5 years, AGI would be able to do everything better than human beings. Wait and see whether that's going to happen, but one thing is certain. A lot of jobs will be displaced by AI, and India will be severely hit by that in the coming years. And Mark Zuckerberg pointed out that even in Meta, they can replace all the engineering jobs up to that of middle software engineer. Now think of it. These are the engineers who have gone to the top American universities like MIT, Caltech, Urbana-Champaign, Berkeley, CMU, and others. And then they have about 10 years of experience. These are the brightest kids who are best trained. And if AI can replace them, then it can replace most other jobs that Indians are doing in India. So how does India now get on to the new industrial revolution, which is AI driven, which is going to be very experience driven, which is going to be very experimentation driven, and all of these things. So some of these terms have not been explained, but just go and check what is AI experimentation. But a simple response is, a simple explanation is, if you are launching a drug, uh, you normally go and do a clinical trial. Now, can you use AI to predict the outcomes? The answer is yes. However, AI will also hallucinate. AI will also draw uh, incorrect inferences based on false positives. And that is why they run a lot of experimentation. Okay, so these are the permutations and combinations they run. These are AI-driven software experimentation. So those are the areas which will shape up in the future. And it's in India's best interest, because India doesn't have institutions that are comparable to the research institutions of the US. India does not have the kind of endowment that American institutes have. Take something like, the Wharton Business School or MIT or University of Chicago. Look at their endowment and look at the kind of research they are doing. India doesn't have anything in comparison. So if India were to adapt to the emerging AI world, it has to align itself with the United States. And this is why I would always tell people who start approaching these issues emotionally, hey, no, US is not a trustworthy ally. No, it's not trust we are talking about. It's survival we are talking about. Until or otherwise, the top 1,000 rank holders in IIT JEE stay back in India, they do research, and they become part of a capitalist economy. They are all going to go to the United States or come over to the United States and innovate for America, and India would be importing these technologies at a forbiddingly higher price. And the only way out of this is for India to align with the US, particularly with Trump, and treat the next 4 years as most critical. And then instead of whining, instead of saying, look, can I trust you? Or, why are you imposing tariffs on us? Bottom line is, India has to get out of the tariff mindset. Okay, why is the government still relying only on tax and tariffs as its only source of revenue? That's primitive. That's Stone Age. Okay, in today's world, everything is futures, right? And can India invest, become a joint stakeholder in trust funds and generate revenue for that? Those are the ways we should think about. Back to you, Shrey.
Thank you so much, Venkat. Viewers, one other disturbing fact, I've touched upon this in a couple of my monologues. I'll tell it again here. When children turn 21 and they came to US as children with parents, and the parents are still waiting for their green card, they become illegal in United States once they turn 21. So they have to return to the place of birth, the country of birth. What happens then? Families get split because somebody has to take care of them. Usually the mother comes back to India. So this is now becoming a big thing, because I'm told, according to one study, 130,000 such students are going to come back. They are going to have the benefit of very good education at a bachelor's level, and I don't know if they can take up courses in IITs and do masters if they want to. But this rich pool is coming in. This rich pool is coming in, and they have to wait until their parents get green card. Afterwards, they may have a chance to get back, because as a family, you will get green card. See, all four.
Let's say we should also look at the data with a bit of caveat, right? Which I want to add. So Trump has, when he introduced the gold card, right? When somebody invests $5 million, they're going to get a gold card, which is basically green card on steroids. And then he also made it very clear, and Elon Musk also elaborated that. Was it in the cabinet meeting? I forgot. But Musk also elaborated on that. So the basic idea is they want American corporations. So when Indian students come here to study at good universities, let's say someone goes to Stanford or someone goes to any of the Georgia Tech or any of the good universities, and they study, what Trump wants is corporations to invest money, this $5 million, to get gold card for these students. These are going to be the number one. Then number two would be the investors from India. Okay, so who have $5 million and who can invest this money in the United States to start business and hence benefit America. They are going to be beneficiaries of that. Now, you talked about the 130,000 students. The number could even be more than that. So, a lot of these who came to do undergrad studies in the US, or not all of them are highly talented, right? A large number of them came to third tier, fourth tier universities in America. They paid fees because their parents were rich. And then these students were not highly accomplished. They could not make it to any of the top IITs in India. That's why, and they couldn't even get into NIT or BITS Pilani or Roorkee or any of these good colleges. And hence, since their parents had a lot of money, they came out to the US. So a lot of them are not going to get gold card, okay, because Trump has made it very clear he's going to be selective about that. And hence, a lot of them would get sent back to India. And I doubt whether they will have the kind of skills if they had only attended a third-rate university in America and studied useless subjects. I doubt they will be of much value to India to build wealth. But that's something we have to deal with because those are Indians. They are anyway going to come back to India.
Thank you so much, Venkat. But one thing I'll always tell all our viewers, God gave us all brains. It is just that focus and dedication that you need. When you realize that, you are good at these things and you are not good at these things. Once you understand that, your life will be much happier. Don't think financial success is what is success. Happiness is more important. Happiness is what really defines how you live your life. Just 2 cents to you, okay? Those of you who think that, oh, I didn't get into the best college, what do I do? I mean, don't worry about it. Try and understand this part. What am I good at? What am I not good at? And just stay in that places where you are good at, because you'll also like what you're doing. Parents may tell you, oh, you should become a doctor, because that is their wish for you. But you need to understand what is it that you are good at. And this is something that we'll have back and forth with parents, and everybody has this prejudged things. Your children have to be this or this or this or this, otherwise, I mean, come on now, there are not that many jobs available or colleges available for everybody to be able to get to the top schools. So just 2 cents, understand what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and that itself will give you a big step in trying to lead your life moving forward.
But with an important qualifier, there are only a few subjects that are going to make you employable, right? You have to study STEM, you have to study finance, economics, accounting, and all of these subjects. Those would get you employed. If you go to a business school, that will get you employed. But then if you go and study useless liberal arts subjects and all these nonsense, you won't get employed. Okay, you won't find a job. So it's also important to keep in mind that it's like a small infant has been only breastfed for 7 or 8 months, whatever it is, and for the first time you introduce semi-solid food, the child is going to resist. Okay, but then in real life, it's not always things you like that will come your way. A lot of things you do not like will come your way, and you have no other option than to work on those things, and one should be grounded in this reality too.
Thank you, Venkatji. If you don't mind, let's pick up on the Greenland thing, because still things are up in the air a little bit. We'll do that in the next episode about the shock and awe continuing, or we can come back again after a few weeks to understand that part. Let's take some questions if you don't mind. We've been talking for 37 minutes. I didn't see how fast the time flew, and I'd like to take the questions, and we have another program coming in fairly quickly, so I would like to give some gap. Kaveri Maindan wants to know, demography is destiny, population exchange or peaceful partition too is just inevitable in the next decade for the very survival of our civilization. Your thoughts? This is India, I think he's meaning. Yeah.
This is not only a problem for India. This is a great question, right? Like Kaveri Maindan, appreciate this. Great question. Once again, I mentioned the Spotify podcast. Elon Musk brings up this very specific point. He takes the example of South Korea. In 3 generations from now, South Korea's population would be 4% of what it is today. So 3 generations is what, like 80 years or something. Okay.
Right.
So how would South Korea tide over this crisis? There is only one way to do that, which is to import population. Okay. Because South Koreans are not marrying, and when they marry late, and they have fewer children. And when they have those fewer children, they have those children very late. Okay. So the way out of this for them is to import workforce from outside. So you go to Japan or South Korea today, you will find a lot of people from Muslim countries who are working in the service sector. You go to the restaurants, okay, you go to a lot of the blue-collar jobs like, airport loaders and other things. A lot of them are from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Rohingya Muslims and others. Okay, from all over the place, Muslims are coming in. And what would it mean? Some of these countries today we see as super developed countries like South Korea, which leads the world in semiconductor research. they would become predominantly Muslim countries. And J.D. Vance was not joking a few weeks ago when he joked that, when he said that UK may turn out to be the first country to first Islamic country to have a nuclear bomb. Okay, so these things could very well happen, and this will also happen in India. Okay, without a doubt. Okay, because today I think India's median age is something like 31 or 32. Okay, and then we are thrilled about it. But fast forward, what's going to happen? Number one, most of the younger Indians, especially the higher IQ ones, are not marrying or marrying late, and then they are having fewer children. So that means your average IQ of India is going to drop, and it's already dropping for people who do not know that. So when you look at Richard Lynn's summary of all the researchers, IQ researchers, in 2002, India's average IQ was a paltry 82. By 2019, it had dropped to 76. This is a terrible situation. What does it mean? It means that the brightest Indians are leaving the shores of India and going over to the US. Okay, so this will have a direct consequence or an inverse relationship on India's ability to manufacture wealth, generate wealth. Then second thing, what will happen? Our longevity is going to increase. Okay, if the average lifespan of Indians now is 69 or 69.5, in a decade it's going to, or a decade or two, it's going to get close to 80 or 85. So when that happens, you'll have a large population which is not productive and which has to be supported for several years, and a smaller population of young people who have to generate this wealth. And this will get even more complicated as AI takes over the rest of the economy, and AI comes to dominate the rest of the economy. The most pertinent question is, how are the people with a low average IQ going to adapt to this reality and thrive? Okay, so at some stage, this is something I have been talking about and writing about for a while, and it's time for people not to just repeat the leftist talking points and say, oh, I want to empower the woman, I want to liberate her. Oh, why should she become a womb factory, and instead she should go and become a corporate slave. On the other hand, you can do that. Okay, you can do that for a generation, you can do that for a couple of generations. Then your civilization will come to an end. And what will happen when all these societies become predominantly Muslim? The same feminist woman who now insists, oh, it's my choice, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have a child, and I want to go and work for the corporate world, and I want to be a feminist. What will happen to her? She will be wearing burqa and hijab, and she'll be running the womb factory for her Muslim husband. Okay, so that's what will happen. So the choice before us is very clear. This demographic is what is going to determine the future of the world. It's already determining the future of India. Look at West Bengal. Because of the large number of illegals who have been imported from Bangladesh and Rohingya and Burma, both of whom are Muslims, 80 to 90 constituencies, assembly constituencies in West Bengal are sealed in favor of TMC, Trinamool Congress. And this is happening around the country, and this is happening around the world, and this demographic warfare is real. And that's why it's very important for those who care about civilization to shed all political correctness and talk the blunt and bitter truth if you want to save the future.
Next one, please. Bester Sudhakar, sir, does America and Europe have actual gold? I think wars are happening due to it. We'll come to, they've been doing a series on this, Sudhakar. It's a little bit out of topic here. We'll talk about this, Venkat, next time, maybe, if possible. Also, Ramchandran wants to know, why is Trump not advocating CBDC for US dollar and promoting cryptos instead? Again, it's out of topic. Sorry, guys. We will take up these things in whenever it's appropriate, because there's so much to cover today. Venkat Ranga wants to know, besides being
maybe on the previous question, shall we just take about 10-15 seconds to answer that, Sree?
Sure. Go ahead.
So why is that? Because with all the money that has been printed by the United States, Doge has revealed some things. Okay, in several of the cases where the money has been routed through NGOs, there is no trail. Okay, there is no chain of custody, how the money was transacted, whom it went to, etc. And a lot of that have actually gone to terrorist organizations. A lot of them have gone into secret shell accounts, okay, run by Democrat politicians, and in some cases could be also Republican politicians. So how do we stop that? Only by relying upon technology, precisely on blockchain technology. And eventually cryptocurrency which relies upon blockchain would be the future of the world, because that will be the best safeguard against fraud, corruption, and inflation. And hence, that's the reason why Trump is, getting into that, because he wants to eliminate American debt and also wants to make sure that in the future the same mistakes are not repeated, and hence.
Next one, please. Magnet Ranga wants to know, besides being transactional, Trump is also disruptive. How long would it take for the world to regroup? And they would surely regroup to counter and safeguard themselves.
I mean, the old Indiana Jones movie, right? Like, the hero comes with a pistol, and then there is a local martial arts guy, who's putting up a lot of tamasha, and finally this guy doesn't even bother, just takes the gun and shoots him, right? One bullet and he's dead, okay? And all the kicks and punches he was throwing meant nothing. So regrouping doesn't mean anything, okay? The US is decades ahead. Just look at space technology. SpaceX is years and years ahead of any other country in the world. And most of the technology, whether it's in medicine, whether it is in computing, whether it is in investment strategies and other things, everything comes from the United States. So simply regrouping would not mean anything. And the second, Trump has made one more thing very clear. Okay, so he will respect national boundaries only to the extent it is beneficial to civilization and to the United States future. Okay, that's why he said, I'm taking over Gaza, I'm owning it. He didn't even say I'm going to buy it or negotiate. No, America is going to own it. And if need be, Trump could do the same thing and help India too. And he's going to do that with Greenland, and he could even do that with India. Okay, let India take over a large swath of Bangladeshi territory, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and Aksai Chin and other places, so that there is uninterrupted trade all the way from Burma up to European Union. So Trump can do that, and there is not anything any other country to do to stop that. So I think beyond the point, I don't give too much weightage to all this empty threats of regrouping. Okay, we'll create an alternative to the United States. Not going to happen, at least for 50 to 100 years.
Manoj San wants to know, is Macron now talking tough on Russia to assert his own leadership and steer Europe away from US through Ukraine war? Is Trudeau also now trying to become a new Zelensky by standing up against Trump?
Well, Zelensky stood up against Trump for exactly 3 seconds and fell down, and now prostrating before him. Okay, and Trudeau put up that same drama, okay, flexed his muscle and came out and cried before the media. And if that is standing up, I think it's better to stand down.
Next one, please. Maithili wants to know, Venkatji Namaskaram, there was a picture of Modi holding a snake in his hand. I found it symbolic. We are on the way to attack the mythical grand dragon with a real snake. Your views, sir?
Oh, I have not seen that picture, but then I love that. Okay, so, Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev talks about, he has actually conducted a few lectures holding a snake, right, a venomous snake in his hand, and fantastic. I like it because snake is very central to Hinduism. And for example, take Kundalini Yoga, the entire representation is in the form of a snake, and our chakras are, okay, that's the picture. Fantastic. Okay, I love that. Okay, I want a world which is more macho, okay, where people can flex muscles, people can handle snakes, and people can talk tough. I don't want a world of weaklings, and this is great. And I think, yeah, if I can read this as a symbolic standing up to the Chinese dragon, but it's a very important point. The enmity between India and Pakistan is very religion-based, right? Because it's motivated by Islamic hatred of the Kafir. Okay? Whereas in the case of China and India, there is no people-to-people enmity. Okay, in fact, go back to the time of Fahian or Xuanzang and others. Throughout, there is only one country which China looked up to. It never considered anybody else as its equals, except one country, and that country is India. That's why Xuanzang comes to India in the 700s, and Fahian comes there in the late 300s or early 400s to collect scientific knowledge from India and take it back to China, translate it and render it. So at a people-to-people level, there's not anything which really, pits Indians against the Chinese. The problem is with the Communist Party. Okay, eventually, I think if Xi Jinping stands on the way, Trump would get rid of the Chinese Communist Party and its leadership, because at the end of the day, national boundaries are important only to the extent that they can guarantee the safety of other nations as well as world peace. Okay, who will benefit if Pakistan or Iran or any other rogue nation or North Korea were to get hypersonic missiles, nuclear bombs, and other things? And who gains by saying, hey, you know what, we respect your national boundary? No. For the sake of Dharma, we should be willing to wage war. For the sake of Dharma, we should be willing to sabotage other countries and the leadership, if needed, even by taking out rogue leaders. This is something which the 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗧 itself teaches. And for those Hindus who are not familiar with this, there is a concept of Vratya in 𝗥𝗚𝗏. Okay, and it is described in a lot of other sutra texts as well, but then in Brahmana rites and other texts. But who are the Vratya? The Vratya are mostly very, very highly educated, dharmic young men who are handpicked by the king to safeguard society. So they cut off their yajñopavíta, and then they take a vow, and then they may even travel to a foreign land, to an enemy land, reside there, and even carry out assassinations if needed to protect Rashtra. And I think this is the premise which should drive us, and not some empty United Nations definitions like, oh, you know, national boundaries or everything. No, national boundaries are not everything. What if you're building a missile within your boundary and that missile is directed at me? Why should I respect your boundary? So we should destabilize rogue nations, take out rogue leaders, and that's what Trump will do. And I hope Modi completely aligns himself with Trump so that we can completely, I don't want Bangladesh or Pakistan and all these rogue nations to exist as independent nations, and they should be come under benevolent colonization of India and the United States. I use the word benevolent colonization because it's not exploitative. All we'll say is, look, you will be governed by us because you cannot govern yourself. Gaza cannot govern itself. West Bank cannot govern itself. So Israel will do that job for them. However, they won't get voting rights and other things. They cannot make too much of noise. Enjoy your life until you become civilized. Then we'll talk about your national sovereignty, your rights and other things. Right now, you are not entitled to that because you are incapable of governing yourself and you pose a threat to me. That's the way I would look at the entire problem.
Thank you so much, Venkatji. And viewers, you will now understand that Venkatji spells you the truth as it is. We are not varnishing anything, no, sugarcoating anything. This is the way it is. This is the reality of the world. And this has been happening for 50, 55 years. It's not something new. If we don't understand the big picture, then we are stupid. We are trying to give you what is going to happen to your next generation, your children, your grandchildren, if you don't do some things today. And I keep saying this thing to the BJP government also. There are some things that are non-negotiable, and they are not doing it. Yesterday, we'll talk about that later. Next week, I think Venkatji will be on Tamil, but in the following week we'll be back on English, time permitting and his travel permitting. Thanks once again, Venkatji. Namaskar.
Namaskar and thank you.